Welcome to the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and I'm passionate about inspiring, motivating, supporting and informing women over 50 to embrace this exciting time of life. Health and wellness in mind, body and spirit are the foundations for living well, but there is so much more to a life well lived. Each week, through conversations with my guests, I'll be presenting topics that will help us all to live well and enjoy life. So join me as we discover new ways to become women living well after 50. Are you ready to start living? What are you waiting for? Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of the Women Living Well After 50 podcast. I'm Sulon Carrick and it's lovely to have you join me. Now, we've all been there wanting to lose weight, dieting, and especially, leading up to menopause and after menopause, weight can be a struggle. So today we're going to be talking with Dr. Ginny Trierweiler, a psychologist and certified health coach who has scoured the research to find evidence-based answers to her own eating and weight issues. She discovered key principles to actually nourish the body so you can activate health and healing from within and naturally release the excess weight. And she's also created an effective program called Slender for Good to help other women over 40 get the same breakthrough results. Today, we're going to be talking about how we can eat more, stress less, and never diet again, which sounds great, doesn't it? We're going to be talking about Slender for Good. So let's go and join the conversation. Welcome, Ginny. It's so lovely to have you join me on the Women Living Well After 50 podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. I love what you're doing with this podcast. I love the whole theme.
Well, I love it too, because I get to meet so many inspiring women, and now you've been added to the list. And it's wonderful that I can bring my listeners topics that are all related to us aging well and aging in a positive way. So I'm excited to talk to you today about your book and your own experiences as well. Yeah. So before we get really into it all, I'd like you to tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and your story and how you came to develop Slender for Good.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my story is that I was sort of naturally slender in my 20s, 30s, and 40s and thought I had healthy eating all figured out. And then everything changed in my 40s. And what I had figured out my whole life wasn't working at all anymore. And I kept doing the same things over and over for 10 years, the next 10 years, thinking this is going to work because it's always worked. And it just wasn't. It was getting worse and worse. So by the time I was in my mid 50s, I could barely walk anymore because of so much pain and inflammation throughout my system. I had prediabetes. I was 60 pounds overweight and I was having a lot of symptoms. I wasn't feeling well. So I had this image that in my 80s, I'll still be hiking in the mountains and I'll still be super cute. And this was already behind me, frankly. Like I was not headed for good things in my 60s, 70s, and 80s. And it makes me want to cry every time I think about it, actually, because it was like, what's wrong? Why is nothing working anymore? And so once I did figure out what works, I had to help other people. And the reason I got really committed to just quit defending the way I was eating and drinking and saying, I think it's all good because it's always worked before, is I had this wake-up call moment where I started, while I was building my own business, I started working in nursing homes as a psychologist. And do you have the same concept of nursing homes in Oz?
Yes, we do. We do.
Okay.
Yes.
So I thought I'm going to go in there and people are going to be in their 80s and 90s and I'm going to help them with the last years of their life and saying goodbye and stuff. No, a lot of people were in their 60s and 70s. And when I looked up their conditions to see if I could help them get out of there, because they were all asking me, can you help me get out of here? I discovered they were never getting out of there. Once they are at the point of needing 24/7 nursing care, it doesn't turn around anymore. And most of their conditions were caused by our diet, by the Western diet. So it put me in a little state of panic. And So I'm telling myself, I already know how to eat healthy. I'm doing pretty good. As a psychologist, at some point I went, you're not super clear how to eat. You tell yourself you know how to eat healthy, but you couldn't write it out in a manual that says exactly how much of this and exactly how much of that. And because I have a background in evidence-based practices, I knew I should be able to. If I have an approach that works, I should be super clear what it is and just follow it. So I finally decided I got to go to the research myself because there's so much misinformation in the marketplace. And I was crying at first because I was doing this kind of alone, right? Like trying to figure it out, and everything I turn to is wrong and poor me. And pretty soon I started realizing these principles. I found 4 fundamental principles that added up to results consistently, reliably. And I started following them, and I wasn't crying anymore. It was actually enjoyable. It actually made sense. It was simplifying my life a lot, and it was working. Like the pain and inflammation that I'd lived with for over 30 years went away. The prediabetes turned around. All these symptoms evaporated, and the excess 60 pounds came off. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
yeah,
I just want to pop in there because you've
yes,
just given me a whole range
I
of
know.
questions I can ask you, which is great. And first of all, I wanted to pick up on the vision for our future. I actually just wrote about that a couple of weeks ago, and the
Yes,
fact that we have a vision board for our life and our dreams, but we don't necessarily have a health vision. And you were thinking in your mind, well, you did have one in a way, because you were
yes,
looking and you were saying, well, in my 80s, I'm going to be hiking, I'm going to be doing this, and I'm going to be doing that. The intent was there, but you didn't really have anything in place
right,
to help you achieve that vision at the time.
right. Yes,
So I think that that's something that we don't think about. We keep thinking, look, I'll be 68 this year, and I still think I'm only about 50.
I
So you
know.
sort of think, oh, that's way in the
That's
future.
way out there. Yes,
Yeah, but at 68, perhaps it's not that far in the future. So,
right.
you need to be thinking ahead. And whilst I believe it's never really too late to start, once you get to a certain point, perhaps it is. But, so I think we need that health vision that you were talking about, of
Yeah.
how we want to be in the future and how we don't want to be, because
Yes,
most of us don't want to be in a nursing home with
right.
24/7 care. If we asked everybody, we'd say, no, I want to be living independently and still doing things.
Yes.
And so we do want that, but we're not working towards it.
Mm,
And the other thing I wanted to hone in on, that you were talking about, the misinformation,
yes.
because there's so many diets out there, so many things on social media with eat this, don't eat that, do this,
No.
don't do that. It's no wonder that people give up and just say,
Yes.
look, it's all too hard.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, happens.
Right.
So you also don't believe that you talk about eat more, stress less, and
Yes.
never diet again. Now, most people would go, oh, yeah, that sounds okay. But to me, that could be the key.
Which part?
All of it,
All of
like
it.
the dieting and sort of
Yeah.
not actually dieting. But I'd like to talk about that with you, about
Yeah.
why, all this misinformation, how we break through that to find out what we can do.
Yeah, it's really tricky, right? Yeah, I feel like for one thing, I would like people to get this idea of there shouldn't be dozens or hundreds of pieces of information you're trying to manage every day. There should be a
Mm,
few clear, sensible, simple principles that you're following. And they might not be what you wish they were. Like one of the reasons we're getting a lot of misinformation, is we're going to buy the stuff that says, go ahead and eat whatever you want. Those people are going to have a better time selling us stuff, right? So don't
mm,
worry, you're going to eat whatever you want, and I'm going to give you a supplement or a pill or a shot that's going to make it not count. It doesn't make any sense, but it's very commonly what's promoted to us. So there's always somebody who can make a lot of money persuading us to do what we want to do and then just take a pill.
mm,
right?
mm,
Does that make
mm.
sense? Like it's
It
profitable.
certainly does.
Yeah.
That, like, and we should be thinking about if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be
Yeah.
true. I actually received an email, I think, from something I've subscribed to. It says, no need to exercise or diet. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, well, that
What then?
just to me doesn't compute.
Right.
But a lot of people would be taken in by that,
Mhm.
to go, oh, well, that's the easy way, I can do that. But you talk about keeping it simple. So what did
Yes.
you do to start?
Yeah, so I went into the research looking at research into eating and weight loss, eating and diabetes, eating and heart disease and high blood pressure. There's basically at least four major chronic diseases that most of us will get and be sick with the last 10 years of our lives that just weren't an issue 100 years ago. But they're becoming a huge issue for us now that are all tied to our diet. And they're the main reason people are in nursing homes. And so it's this gradual thing. We don't get sick overnight, but little by little, our body breaks down, right? And so finding principles that will guide us to this is actually how you eat to be healthy every day. Healthy as far as your blood sugar, as far as your blood pressure, as far as your weight, and all those things. I found four fundamental principles that added up to results over and over and over. I was able to translate them into this means eat this much this, and this much that, and this much this. And it really starts with eating more. We find we're much more successful if we focus on eating more. So I know that sounds kind of weird, but the idea is if our body isn't, what I found is if our body isn't getting enough nutrition, it stores excess fat to protect us.
Mm,
And in our current environment, now this is in the United States, which is the worst in the world, but UK is the same. 73% of our food is highly processed, non-nutritious food-like substances. 73%. It doesn't matter
mm,
how much of that we eat, we're just going to be sick.
mm,
We're not getting
mm.
nutrition. Our body's still going to store excess fat because it didn't get enough nutrition yet. Keep going, keep going, keep going. So we really start with focusing on eating abundant, nutritious foods, like
Yes, yes.
real, real foods.
That's right. And I mean, Australia is not far behind the US or the UK in those figures either, because we live in a society where it's just so easy to go grab a packet of this and a tin
Yes.
of that or whatever.
Yep.
And, because everyone's too busy. But actually, if it doesn't take you long to prepare a nutritious meal. You just have
Right.
to have the food in the house.
Right. Right.
It's no good saying I want to eat whole foods and your cupboard's full of highly processed foods. So
I
you
know.
have to start there, don't you? You have to start
Yes.
understanding what an ultra processed food is.
Yeah, and they're promoted as very highly, wholesome and nutritious and good for you. The packaging all says they're good for you. And so we go, oh, good, because it's convenient and it's tasty and I want to eat it. So we have to be really wiser than that. Like if it has packaging that says how good for us it is, it probably is a lie.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when we're eating more, obviously we're going to have more energy as well. That's going to help lots of areas in our lives.
Yes.
Um, and you talk about embracing healthy eating habits, which we're talking about now. But
Yeah.
how does one start? I mean, let's try and bring it back to basics. Someone's
Mm.
listening and go, well, that's all right. I hear you, but what do I want to do today that's going to be a small step in the right direction?
I love that question. One of the first things I find that will change people's lives really quickly is to really eat more fruits and vegetables, whole fruits and vegetables, not juice, not dried, not packaged in some way, but just actual whole food. Um, there is this little bit of more time it takes to eat when you're eating real food, right? The
Mm,
great thing
mm.
is, like you said, you get more energy. Like the amount of time and energy I was spending figuring out, oh, can I find any clothes that are going to look better? Like, what am I going to do to look good today? And just the amount of, I feel like I saved about 2 hours a day of stressing over, oh man, I shouldn't have eaten all that today. What am I going to do tomorrow to make up for what I ate today? It's just
Mm,
not a way of living, and it really takes your time and energy. So there is this upfront kind of energy of, well, what vegetables do I even like that I could eat in abundance? So one of the ways I summarize it, it depends on the person, but most of us have to about quadruple the amount of vegetables we're eating, which when I started finding that in the research, I argued with it. No, that's mean. I don't want to eat that many
mm,
vegetables. Well, our body responds so well to eating abundant fruits and vegetables. And it's not all we eat, but it will change everything. Like my clients tell me all the time, I'm not hungry. I've never lost weight not being hungry.
mm,
Right. So that's really the first thing they can do is start eating, find a way to eat fruits and vegetables that's a lot more than you're doing now. Like it should be the
mm,
center of your plate.
mm. And I mean, in the different seasons, it's not that difficult. Like we're over here in summer and we're experiencing heat waves with
Are
crazy
you?
weather,
Yeah.
cyclones, everything over here.
Oh,
And so it's hot, you don't feel like eating, but a beautiful salad of all different
yes.
vegetables and that you can make up is refreshing as well as nourishing. And
Yes.
likewise, for those who are in winter at the moment, you could just chop up a heap of veggies and make a soup out of them. And that can be
Mm,
add some legumes and other
yeah.
things, and that can become quite hearty, can't it?
Yes. Or roasted vegetables are delicious.
Mm,
So I
mm.
have quite a few clients who love to share pictures of, look at all the roasted vegetables I made. And they start the week out feeling like, I'm excited to eat this stuff, right? So it's not like dieting. It's not something we do temporarily. We make it a project and we figure out, how can I fall in love with way more vegetables?
Mm, mm. So it's more about a lifestyle that we're going to adopt rather than saying all the time, I'm on a diet. Because as soon as you say that, um,
Yes,
you want to rebel against it anyway, and
I
everything
know.
and all the bad food seems to be in your face. Whereas
Yes,
if you go, well, I am choosing a lifestyle that's going to incorporate healthy eating habits so that when I'm 80, I'm hiking,
I
I'm
know.
running, I'm doing that.
Yes.
That's really the mindset we should be having.
Yes. And how do I make it easy? And how do I fall in love with it? Right. Yeah.
Mm,
Like
mm,
I kind of came to this conclusion that I say everything I eat or drink either helps or harms my body. I can make as many arguments as I want about this harmful thing is okay and this harmful thing is okay, but it wasn't true. And my body was letting me know it isn't true. And I couldn't go for a 10-minute walk anymore. I
mm.
had that
Well,
much
you
pain.
certainly,
Hmm?
yeah, well, you've certainly proven that you can turn things around because you're looking fit and healthy now,
Oh,
which
thank
is
you.
great. But that's because you've taken the steps to
Yeah.
be serious about it. And what I also think is someone like yourself who's a psychologist, we probably expect professional people to know what's
Yes.
good for them. But
Yes.
even someone like yourself who's highly educated and helping other people, um, you have had fallen into that same trap as well.
Yeah, well, I realized we grew up in an environment our whole entire lives where all the non-nutritious processed stuff was promoted as pretty benign. We give it to
Mm,
children. We take it to people who are sick. We give it to people in the nursing homes. Like as I studied this and watched the people in the nursing homes avoiding fruit, my diabetic patients were avoiding fruit, but they were having ice cream every day.
mm,
There's a craziness. We talk about it being deranged. We live in a deranged food environment, and we grew up every day of our lives in this deranged food environment. So it's not easy to find good answers out there, I have to say. There's a lot of terrible answers out there that'll just keep you
mm,
stuck, and it makes me mad. So, yeah.
mm. Well, I think it also comes back to a little bit with us to try and find the information. And I know it's hard, there's so much out there. But for example, my husband has type 2 diabetes, and we finally, I've managed to get him to understand what
Mm,
that's about. And we've finally got that under control, only
congratulations.
because we've both been working to understand what it is, like,
Yeah.
and that like, for example, he said, I've got to cut out carbs. Like, we were talking to his endocrinologist, and she said, no, you don't have to do that. I need you to have that. It's understanding what you eat. But as you said, there was fruit or ice cream. So the
Yes.
fruit, even though that's got the natural sugars in it, is going to be
Yeah.
better for you than the ice cream, which is just full of
Far
calories and
better. It's
sugar. Yeah.
one is good for your cells and one is damaging to your cells. And it isn't
Mm.
presented that clearly to us. For me, getting that super clear became really helpful. I hear this from Slender for Good clients all the time. Once it was super clear, I could absolutely do it. I'm not trying
Yes.
to figure it out every day, like, right?
Yeah. And it's always got to be keep it simple. And now I
Yeah.
think he's finally got that understanding, but
Uh,
he had to research it himself and come to
yes.
terms with it, and just cut through all the misinformation, because yes, fruit does have sugar in it, but it's not bad necessarily as what it, other, refined
Yeah,
sugar is. So it's a matter
absolutely.
of learning.
Yeah, for me, it really does come down to how processed is it? Like if it's juice, it's already pretty processed. And so it's concentrated the sugar, it's taken the fiber out. We don't get very good nutrition out of juice. But when we
Mm,
eat something that we would have juiced, we because it comes with the fiber, see our body, the human body can't digest fiber. But the
mm,
bacteria in our gut can digest fiber. And when they do, it gives us all kinds of nutrients. So there's
mm,
this complex system. We evolved to eat food. We didn't evolve to eat things that are super broken down. It's just not, it's damaging to our system.
mm. I think that's something people don't realize either, the juice and the dried fruits. And I mean, I
Yeah.
love dried fruit, but
Yes.
they're just, even though, and they'll go, oh, yeah, but that's healthy, that's fruit. But as you say, the concentrated sugar that happens, rather than just having a whole piece, raw
Yes.
fruit sort of thing,
Right.
without any, just grab the apple off the tree sort of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think people really recognize that as well. So, it can be complicated, but that's where someone like yourself comes in to help those that are struggling.
Yes.
So let's move on to Slender for Good after 50. Now, why are you calling it Slender for Good?
Well, I wanted to get naturally slender myself. It's not like a term that I loved, but I just wanted to be naturally a healthy weight again and just live there the rest of my life. And so that's where that term came from. Uh, the for good part is like we should be able to get slender not by starving ourselves, but by giving our bodies what makes them happy. And that's what I started finding in the research. Like I was like, why does it work to eat more? Why is that what's producing great results? And I found these researchers who are saying, well, I love to share this analogy. Basically, we look like animals, like our whole Western population now looks like animals that are getting ready to hibernate. So, like, we're in a low nutrition environment or we're getting ready to hibernate. So, our body says we better store excess fat now. So, we have to eat enough. We have to eat enough of nutrition in order to turn that situation around. And right now, it doesn't matter how much we eat, 73% of it is not nutritious. So we just keep eating and eating and eating, and our body stores excess fat to protect us. It also drives up cortisol and it changes our hunger hormones. So we never get over feeling hungry. Like we eat and half an hour later we're hungry again. So these
Mm,
are all the kinds of changes that bears go through when they're getting ready to hibernate. I don't know if you guys have bears there, but I lived in
No,
Colorado.
no.
We
Yeah,
had
no, we
bears.
don't have bears, but we know about the
You know the idea,
hibernation.
right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. So, can we talk about your book? What
Oh,
prompted you
yeah.
to write the book?
Yeah. Well, I feel that 99% of what people are finding out there is going to give them temporary results at best. And that makes me really mad. Looking at women like me, I was in my mid 50s and my health was going down and I did not have a happy future ahead of me. And I'm smart. Like I should have been able to figure this out. So it seems to me like no matter how much you study in this environment, you're mostly going to find bad information. So I don't want people to have to keep doing that. I want to say, here's what we find. If we look at hundreds and hundreds of studies, comes down to these four principles, follow these four principles. And here's the piece that I feel like one of the reasons, like I can't just hand it to people is people need help with, well, how do I actually change my habits that way? How do I change my mindsets? So when you said,
Mm,
what did you say? I love dried fruit. I love dried fruit. Those kinds of mindsets are something that we want to change. Like if the
mm,
things I love and I say I deserve are the things that are bad for me, I have a bunch of mindset changes I want to make to be able to succeed with this. And then I have this expertise in habit change. So I've been helping people for over 30 years with changing their habits. And it's not hard, but people can't just do it by, oh, tomorrow I'm going to change my eating in this giant way and everything will change in my life. It's a little more of a process than that, right? So that's
mm,
partly why I needed to write this up and I needed to create this program to help people make the habit changes and get happy with them. Like, I just love eating this way. Why would I ever change it?
mm. I think the mindset's very important because I struggle myself still, but it's the way you're brought up. Whenever, like, you tend to think if you're having people over, you've got to have a dessert or a
Yes.
cake or something like that. And, why do we have to do that? It's sort of like eating is such a social thing and it's
Yes.
wonderful. I had my family over on the weekend and we had a
Yeah.
great time, but I really tried to keep it healthy,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that hard. We had delicious
Oh,
salads
good.
and,
Yeah.
and I wanted to try and keep it healthy because I've got grandsons who I want to, and their parents are pretty good at keeping them on the
Oh,
track of eating healthy. But
right.
you want to try and be a bit of a role model as well
Yes.
for the next generations, because they
Yes.
will look at you and go, well, there's Nan eating this cream cake and doing this and that, and she can't get off the lounge to come and play soccer. Or we've got a
Right.
Nan who's, healthy and fit and she
Right.
runs and she plays soccer with us. It's,
Oh, yeah.
it's important that we think about that issue as well.
Yes, I mean, children now are developing diabetes type 2, right? My housekeeper's son, 14 years old, overweight, developed diabetes and heart disease, and they were able to turn it around. But I mean, all around the world now, we're eating so wrong. And it
Mm,
is having an effect. And so, how do we see, okay, this is wrong. I may love it. I may have grown up loving it. I may have a lot of conditioning and learning that tells me this is the way to eat, but I can absolutely change it. I have to bring the love over to the real food.
mm, mm. And we need to get that support, don't we? So we've got someone like yourself who works with women, who just don't know where to start or struggle. But we need to have that support at home as well, because you
Yeah.
don't want to have to be making, three, if you've got a family, you don't want to be making 3 or 4 meals for
Right.
dinner. You want to just say, well, you need
Here's
them
the
on
food.
board as well, don't you?
Yes. Well, in fact, it's funny because I do have some men in my program, but a lot of women and a lot of women's husbands end up losing even more weight than they do, just eating with them because there's so much more healthy food in the house, which
Mm,
is pretty
mm.
fun.
Yeah, and look, there's so many different recipes you can try these days, um, that it doesn't have to be just eating a lettuce leaf. You
Right.
can make the food enticing and delicious,
Yes.
and use some herbs or things like that to improve the flavor. I think there are a lot of people getting on board with that, but again, you still have to look at what they put in with what they call healthy, because you might go to the supermarket, as you said way back at the start, and a product might have on it low fat.
I
But if you
know.
look at the label, it might be high in sugar and high in other things because of the
Right.
taste, and they put additives in to make it taste better.
Yes.
So, we've got
The,
to learn about all those things as well.
the whole low fat movement was really destructive to our food environment and to our health. Yeah. Because when they took the fat out, things didn't taste good. So they added sugar
Mm,
and all kinds of flavorings, which has been very detrimental for us.
mm. And in fact, some fats are good for us. It's the saturated
Absolutely.
ones we have to stay away from. But,
Right.
the monosaturated, polyunsaturated, we do need fats in our diet. And I think that's the other thing. We need all the areas of food, like all the macros and the micronutrients and so forth. We need the balance of that for a really healthy way of eating, don't we? We can't just say, well, we're cutting out, we're just having high protein. We're not having
I
carbohydrates, and
think,
we're not
yeah,
having
that's
this, and we're
so.
not having that.
Well,
It's
it's
more of
interesting because I think
yeah.
that focusing on macronutrients is confusing for us. We should have
Mm,
these guiding principles. Like a lot of my clients have done the macronutrient counting and they've said, I really like this focus on I eat these foods. I just eat foods.
mm,
And I eat a
mm.
lot of foods. And it just seems to work out for the macronutrients. We don't have to, we shouldn't have to be counting all that, I think.
No, I think it's all just become too hard, as I said,
Yes.
and then that way people just give up and think,
Yes.
look, I just don't have time, don't have the inclination. I'm going
Yes.
all right now, but it's the future we've got to be thinking about.
I love that focus. I think that's so true. Have you heard this idea of we think about tomorrow us like she'll handle this problem. Too bad for her. We don't think of her as someone we care about. But so one of my clients did age progression of her picture so she could see herself 10, 20 years from now. She said the only thing is it didn't progress my weight, which would have been more realistic. But like seeing ourselves in the future and going, oh, I want to do the best for you can be
Mm,
so helpful. I don't want to push
mm.
all the problems off on you. Like I'm eating this today. Too bad for you.
Yeah, yeah. And I saw, that's right. It's all part about that future vision. But the other thing is, I saw, I don't know, a meme or something where it said that what you eat shows how much you self-respect your body, or shows you
Yeah.
how much self-respect you have. Because if
Yes.
you're putting in, if you know what's good and what isn't, if you
Yeah.
want to respect your body, if you want to respect yourself, you need to be eating those healthier options.
Real foods. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So we're sort of coming towards the end of our conversation, Ginny, and it's so important. But a couple of things. I do have a question that I always ask at the end,
Okay.
but have a think and see if we've covered everything that you wanted to. But I just wondered if you could just, without going into detail, because I want people to discover your book and read it, but what are those 4 principles that you were talking about, just high level?
High level. The first one is eat abundant, highly nutritious foods.
Right.
And we get very specific about what abundant means. It really makes a difference. I'm going to pull them up in front of me.
Yeah, sure.
The second one is eat meals, not snacks. 100 years ago, people knew not to eat snacks. Now everybody feels they need snacks. It's not helping. The third principle is keep it real, avoid food-like substances. And the fourth principle is smart quantities. So we don't count calories
Yes.
at all. We don't count carbs, but we do know how much fruits and vegetables, how much proteins, how much fats, how much whole grains to eat to get weight loss. It's very predictable and it works very reliably.
And just on that quantity portion control, You
Mm.
know, we tend to, our plates are so much bigger than what they were, you know, previous generations, aren't they? We just pile them all up,
Which is
and
okay
even,
if most of your plate is vegetables.
yes, yes,
Yes.
that's right. But, you know, when you come into other things like your protein, say, for example, meats and chicken and so
Yes.
forth, you need to have a look at that portion control as well. So, you
Yeah,
know, those four things aren't really that difficult when you think about
they
it. It's
aren't.
just knowing about it. And I'd encourage the listeners to seek out your book, because you've obviously got those four principles in detail there that they
Yes.
can have a good read at their leisure and, you know,
Yep.
find that information. You've done all the hard work
That's
by
what my
getting all
clients
the,
like to say. I
yeah.
appreciate you did all the hard work because I didn't want to read that hundreds of research studies.
Well, no, that's right, because they're not really, they can be a bit dry and they can be a bit difficult to read, don't they? So you've
Yeah.
really done all the hard work.
Yes.
Now, is there anything else that I haven't covered at the moment in the conversation today?
Just, I think the only thing is just people should let themselves off the hook about how difficult this has been, because we really live in difficult times as far as this goes. It doesn't have to be hard to change it. I think don't make yourself feel like you have to do it all alone. I need to figure this out. I'm smart. It doesn't matter how smart we are. The answers are difficult to find.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a good piece of advice. And, you know, we can be too hard on ourselves as well, or we expect to see results overnight,
Yes.
rather than if we just make those, you know, habits and mindset aren't easy to change. So, you know, if we just do them step by step in smaller steps and achieve each one, you know,
Yeah.
we're going to get there, rather than trying to go, well, I'm going to throw everything out today and do
Right.
all of this, and then a week later go, oh, this is all too hard.
I'll just add this one piece, which is when we're dealing with the primitive brain, which keeps our habits running, um, it helps to have a visual image. It helps to have emotion, like I'm excited about this, I'm ready to go. It also helps to have coaching, some kind of authority you can follow so you're not just constantly doing something new. And it helps to have a community doing it with you. Um,
Mm,
Otherwise, the primitive brain and our environment tends to bring us back. This is why a coaching program can be really make it so much easier.
mm. Well, I'll be putting all the links in the show notes so that people can find you and your
Okay.
program. And I'm assuming that you can also do it online in this world of technology. So,
Yes, I have
you
clients
would
in
have
Australia.
clients. Oh, great.
Yeah,
Okay. So, you know, it has opened up. COVID, certainly one positive was opening up this way of communicating
I
and
know.
being able to work with people worldwide. So that was about the only thing that was positive
It
about
was
that.
good. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we go, Ginny, I just wanted to ask you a question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what does being a woman living well after 50 mean to you?
Mm. Oh, I love it. I love your whole approach. Um, I mean, for me, more than anything, it's I take care of myself. Like I don't just work for everyone else. I prioritize myself. Otherwise, I can't live well. Like I was killing myself for as a CEO of a nonprofit organization and waiting for someone to turn around and notice I needed some caretaking. That was never going to happen. It's like, why do you need caretaking? Just keep taking care of us. So I think getting really committed to my own health and being someone who could keep hiking in my 80s, yeah, that's what living well means to me.
Very good. That's something that we all really need to do. You know, hey, we need looking after as well. And if we don't look after ourselves, who's going to? So
Nobody.
that's a great piece of advice. So thank you very much for joining me today, Ginny. It's been lovely to talk to you.
Thank you.
I'll be putting up about the book and so forth so that
Thank
people
you.
can find you. And I'll look out for you in your 80s when you're hiking.
Yeah, you'll have to come hike with me, or I'll come hike with you in Australia.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's a date.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Well, that was an interesting conversation I had with Dr. Ginny Trierweiler today, talking about the fact that we really don't need to diet. It's about eating good food. It's about changing our mindset and just really thinking about what we want to be like in the future, thinking about taking care of our future self. So I hope you've enjoyed that interview. Please share it with a friend because I know that they will benefit from the conversation. And until next time, remember to live well, enjoy life, and most of all, be a woman living life your way. Bye for now.